Alrighty. What were your guys' initial reactions?
Um, I was surprised that this happened in the 1960s. Like I was thinking, literally, like for me, my parents were born in the 60s and they were literally like alive during this time. And my grandpa was also a Chicago police officer, so it really made me think like, wow, was he a part of this and was he arresting people for being gay? And also what I found interesting was I looked up, so like 2015 was the year that the Supreme Court makes same-sex marriage legal in all states, and I just think that's insane
Yeah.
that it took, what is that, 60 years, 55 years.
Yeah, I was really shocked. I had never heard of it. Like, I didn't even know that it happened. I had never heard of like Stonewall or anything like that. So I was just really shocked by like everything that happened in the whole film. And shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, and like the fact that I didn't learn about it was shocking, and just like I still can't believe that we aren't learning about like gay rights and stuff in schools. Like I think that's so messed up and that it needs to be like implemented in all of our like education. So it's just crazy that I'm a junior in college and I'm just now learning about this. So
Yeah, I know. I mean, I was surprised too. Like, I haven't heard about this either. I'm just like watching it, just like maybe a percentage, just like every year it happens. And like, I don't know, something like that really stood out to me was like that drug that they were talking about that like simulated the experience of drowning. Like that, just like it's like like doctors can actually do that.
Yeah. I would say like I had heard about Stonewall, but it was only maybe within the last couple of years just because of like all of like the uprisings that are happening, so people would start talking about Stonewall. But like my mom, yeah, same as Kelly, like my mom was alive during that, and she, I know, has no idea like what happened. And it's just like crazy to think, because it's like if you think about it, like in the movie they were like talking about how there was it was a major event going on, but it was like not covered in any news, like, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, it makes me think like if that were to happen today, like that would be on Facebook, on Instagram, that would be no, like, so I don't know, that was
Yeah, I mean, I know like it said like there were a few photos of like the raid and all that stuff. But, like as you said, like it would be all over social media, like
yeah,
it'd be, like trending on Twitter and like just would be big.
yeah, it kind of like made me like really inspired, just because it was just like, oh, you guys like did an actual uprising for multiple nights without having social media to like garner, like to start that. Like they were like, oh yeah, we printed out 5,000 leaflets, and I'm like, what? Like, dang. I don't know, I thought that was really impressive.
Going into like the first question about the various institutional uh oppression, I saw like in the film, I don't know, I think it was a school that he was talking to, that one guy, he said, this is the one thing you can't get away with. And it was like he was standing in front of his school telling these students to be afraid and to like not associate with those type of people, because if you get caught, you're done. And like other institutional places like politics, the police, I wrote something about like politics and police were completely against them.
Yeah.
we kind of we've like talked about this in most of our classes, but like the medical professionals that thought homosexuality was like a mental defect and stuff. That's like a form of institutional oppression too. It's like you can't even go get medical help. So
Yeah,
I-
and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna bring up the mafia. Like, I feel like that was a really interesting institution in a way of being involved. Because it was kind of just like, oh, so you've got the mafia and the cops working together against the gays. So that was interesting.
Yeah, it was also interesting, like when they talked about like just like direct means, just like how like if well, I wrote they could get arrested if someone knew you were not really what you appeared to be on the outside. And oh, also the like 3 articles of clothing that they talked about, like it had to be of your gender or you were like a violation. Which was great as well.
I was shocked going back to like the medical institution, lobotomies. I did not know that that was a type of cure that they did. I think I knew about the adversive therapy with the shocking, but I didn't know that they would show images of like nude men to men that they thought were gay and then shock them. I mean, that's like torture.
It's so unethical, and it's just like, I don't know if you guys have watched, this is mildly off topic, I promise I'll get done with it, but have you guys watched Ratchet on Netflix yet? Whew, it just like, this whole documentary like made me like, oh my God, like this is actually legit. This actually did happen. They were lobotomizing people for being gay.
Yeah, I know what scene you're talking about. And yeah,
That was really good to watch. They were like drilling in people's heads.
Mm.
something that I thought was like just crazy was that they would list their name and home addresses in newspapers, like if they found out that they were gay, like totally just exposing everyone and like the
no
amount of
ruin their life.
even now like people are afraid to put out like gay pride flags and stuff because they're afraid of what could happen like to their home and like their safety and stuff, and like having that listed where everyone in the town can see where you live and like know that you're gay, and since it was bad then or whatever, like that's so scary. Like your life is literally in danger and they're just giving people your address.
And I wrote down in like big letters, like it's still happening today, like Pulse nightclub 2016. I think it was 39 or 49, I don't know, but a lot of people were killed, and that was in 2016. That was only 4 years ago.
Yeah, when they like started just kind of like going into like the details of like the bar and Stonewall, I just started thinking about Pulse nightclub, and I was just like, damn, like, damn.
And like going into the second question, what was the impact? I wrote down like I was kind of thinking of the Black Lives Matter movement, like of it was kind of just like this repressed anger that just came out that one night, and the riots and the fires and all of them like locking the police in Stonewall. I wrote down sends a bigger message than the violence they created. This anger had been repressed for years. It's like they were so fed up that this was the trigger, and this like, and it's kind of like the Black Lives Matter where they were saying even straight people were joining in.
Yep.
In the protests, and um, the riots and protests mean more than the damage and the violence. Sends a bigger message.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely talked about the anger. So I agree.
And then like the first gay pride parade, how that like came about after this and whatnot. So I think like I really feel like this sparked a huge like LGBT movement in a way.
I think that like Just some things that happened that were like due to that oppression that they were facing, like them having to have sex in like trucks. Like that was crazy to me. I didn't know that that was happening or that that ever happened. And like just the fact that they had to like hide in trucks with one another, like just anything to get away from people to be able to express themselves. I thought that was really sad.
Didn't they
Or
say, like,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like, didn't they say that there were like over like 100 people in like those trucks?
Yeah. Like you're just like crammed in there. I don't know.
And it's like a meat truck. Like,
An empty meat truck, like not sanitary, like
Wow.
not good.
And that Stonewall was like a dump. Like
Yeah.
it was dirty, but it was like a safe place. They still went there because it didn't matter that
No.
it was disgusting. They were literally being served water, and
right.
we get to hang out with each other.
And like that just goes to show, because it's just like, dang, like that bar was crap. It was just a hole in the wall, but that was still a refuge. Like, what does that say about like what the environment must have been like? Like, I just,
Also, what I found interesting was this was happening in New York. Like they all gathered in New York because New York was liberal.
yeah.
That's why they went there. So
Let's talk about the last question. What strategies could social workers employ in the institutions to promote the self-determination of the clients?
I think like so what the question's asking is like the institutions we talked about, what could they do better?
Providing them the counseling that they need, especially like after all of this happened, like they're gonna need someone to like talk about it with and process and like figure out where to go from now or go from there. So that's just one simple thing.
I don't think these institutions like should forget the oppression and the abuse and torture. I think, and I'm sure they have like owned up to it. I don't know about you guys, but my high school was very open and welcoming, and just to see that clip of that teacher saying that, like I can't imagine like me sitting through that.
Yeah.
Scary.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that could have been our parents listening to these teachers tell us you can't be this.
Right. I think like from like an advocacy standpoint, like it's just as social workers, we would probably like want to strive for like working with like the police and stuff, and like you said, like reminding them like, hey, don't forget, like this was only so many years ago and we aren't that far from it. I don't know, because it's just like this could happen again. Like in 2020 it practically has for Black people, so it's just like, I don't know. I think as as a social worker, our advocacy would be huge for this.
Yeah, because oppression just doesn't go away. Like, I mean, it's definitely died down since, but
I think there's just things just keep getting added. So like the legalization of marriage was passed and now it's like trying to get them rights for adoption. Like
Yeah.
it just keeps going and going.
and that one scene where they were talking to that one guy who was like the leader of the, what was it, the Machishine Society.
Yes.
He was saying, we don't want you to legalize marriage. We're not looking that far yet. We just want to be treated like people. Like they weren't even looking that far.
And that was crazy to me, because I was just like, hold up, like these are your rights and you're literally sitting here saying it's okay, like we aren't asking for all of them, just some. And I'm like, what the, like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
But it did remind me a little bit of like the defund the police movement, where they've always said like, okay, like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we were saying we want reform because that's what the world was ready for. So now they're like, okay, now we're actually, this is more what we want. So I guess I can see where they're coming from, maybe where they're like, they're not going to give it all to us at once, but it's still just like, you guys deserve that. Like, oh my God.
I want to know if that guy is still alive or if he passed away. And if he passed away before 2015, that's rough. That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have written down that they radicalized for them to fit into society. So like they literally like just wanted to like not be outcasts. Like
Yeah.
they didn't want all the stuff that we
They're like, you don't have to give us our rights, just treat us like people.
have. Right.
Sad.
Exactly.
I really liked, this is kind of off topic, but there was one scene that made me laugh when they were talking about Stonewall. This guy was like, the police weren't letting us dance.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. And that's why they're pissed. Let us dance.
It's just like the freedom to even like, I don't know, even like think a certain way. Like it was illegal. I don't know.
I also didn't know that it went on for like days. I thought it was only like one night.
Yeah, I thought it was only one night too.
2 hours.
But they just like came back the next day and was like, okay, time to go to Stonewall.
Like, and that, because I kept seeing stuff like when all of the protests were going on after George Floyd, like everyone was just like, this is what happened with Stonewall. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And now I get it. I'm like, oh.
We're comparing it to Stonewall.
Yeah, I'm happy they chose this movie for us to watch.
Yes.
I'm really glad that I learned about it. Right. Stop recording.
Also, did you notice how they called it the homophile movement?
Mm-mm.
I like was like, what is that like? But it was like one of the gay people was calling it the homophile movement. I was like, is that what it was called in the beginning?
Yeah, I feel like they all called it different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also, speaking of like homophile, I did not know, I don't know if I said this, I didn't know why the word homosexual was outdated until watching that it was like a bad thing. They were like, these homosexuals, like, okay, Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like that could be like homosexual, that could be made into like a bad word.
Yeah.
Like the R word. It's just crazy. Like you hear, I mean, there's still people out there that think being gay or being transgender and all that is a mental illness, but like you wonder like where does that mindset come from? And now you know, because it was literally dug into people's heads that it is or was a mental illness.
And then you have generations of like parents and grandparents like instilling that into their children too. Like,
Exactly. And that's why you still see it today, because these parents were alive at that time.
it kind of makes me wonder, like going back to racism, it's just like our parents were alive during that time too. Like, so it just,
I feel like our generation of kids are going to be much better.
Hopefully.
we dope. We're going to have some good kids.
We're taught the right way.
Hey. They aren't going to have that much trauma. They're going to be good.
I think we're
Good.